Hi everybody, welcome to the Shrimp Room. This is John with Shrimp Really Thinking. I decided to do a little comparison of the soils that are available to me in my area. The ones just off the shelf are the three I got in front of me here. I have the JBL, the Neo, and the Fluval Stratum, all the shrimp reducing pH medias. I've never seen the ADA or any of the ammonia leaching soils available to me. I can order them, but I've never gone to the trouble to order something. I've mostly all been using Fluval Strata and a little bit of the Neo. I don't really tell too much of a difference between them. The JBL is a new one to me. That's for the first time. So I got three 75-liter tanks, so three 20-gallon tanks that have actually been cycling with RO water in them for a couple months now. So the sponge filters and my homemade UGF boxes, which have just a base layer of lava rock in them, have been cycling for 2 months. So these tanks are well established with the biofilm. A little bit of algae growth on the walls are starting. So I'm going to fill them all up with my RO water. I got about 300 liters ready to go. It's RODI water that I've remineralized, and I've remineralized, last time I checked, it was up at about 122 or so. Let's see. 122 is my TDS, 122 to 121. And my pH, when I last checked, was 6.5 in this barrel. Check it again for you, but this sometimes takes a minute to read. Yeah, we're at 6.5 for the pH. So I'm going to fill up the aquariums and set them up, and I'm going to run them for I'm going to run them for a long time, but I'm going to check all the parameters in them each couple weeks, say, and kind of figure out which is going to be the best soil and which is going to be the best one to buffer the pH. I've never been able to get the pH lower than 6.3, 6.4 in any of my tanks, which is pretty much what my RO water comes in at. So I'd like to get it down a little bit lower if at all possible. So we'll see which soil is going to be the best, and that'll probably be the one that I stick with, because it's the most easiest for me to obtain, to just get it off the shelf in my local fish stores here. So I'll get this all set up. I won't bore you with it, and then maybe we'll come back when I start taking some readings. Okay, give me a moment. Okay, I got the three 20-gallon or 75-liter tanks all filled up with remineralized RODI water, mineralized to a 122 TDS, and we had a pH of 6.5. I've put about 6 cups of the substrate in each tank in my UGF filters, and I'm going to fill up a small flower pot as well with the same substrate, and I'm just going to put a couple plants in there. And then I have, I got one eel grass that I attached to a plug in each tank. So these are obviously going to be Caridina tanks. The first thing I notice right now is the Fluval Strata and the JBL don't give off a lot of dust. They are still relatively clean, whereas the Neo substrate, it does cloud the water. Not a big deal, but we'll just compare everything. So next I'll get some plants and I'll fill those flower pots, and yeah, we'll get this comparison going. Okay, see you shortly. Okay, I'm back. It's 3 days later. There's some obvious differences, at least with one of the tanks. For whatever reason, the JBL tank has gone green. The Neo and the Fluval are still pretty clear. I've done my dip testing already, and I'm also getting some interesting results. And I'm just doing a pH with my dip pen at the moment. But maybe I should recap. So these 3 tanks were originally cycling for 2 months. I drained that cycled water out, and then I replaced it with remineralized water. And the TDS was 122, and the pH was 6.5 when I filled up all 3 tanks. So all 3 tanks started out the same. Over the past couple days, I added some things to the tanks, but all the tanks are identical. I put a flower pot in there with the same substrate that's associated with each tank. I put a couple plugs of eel grass in there just because I like eel grass. There's a ball of wassertang moss in there, and I think I threw 2 or 3 Malaysian trumpet snails in each tank. And yeah, the testing is interesting. So far, it doesn't look like I have any nitrates, or ammonia in the tank. They all look like the ammonia levels are 0 or very, very close to 0. But the interesting thing is, so I'm just hanging, went off. I was just hanging my pH pen here, just because it gets a more accurate reading the longer it hangs. And I'm getting a pH of 7.1. Now, so the pH has gone up considerably from when the tank was first set up. That's the JBL has gone up. The Neo, all right, I'll just take a minute here, but the Neo has dropped the pH, and it looked like it was dropped to about 5.7. And then also the Fluval stratum dropped it to not nearly as good, but it did drop slightly to 6.4. So if this continues, I will continue running this for a few weeks and testing. I seriously want to see if I can get the JBL tank. I'm a little bit disappointed in the JBL because I really liked the Substrate a little bit better. It just seemed a little bit more solid, round. It's got a little bit more of an ashen gray color to it. The Neo, which is so far looking to be the best buffer, was a little bit more kind of crumbly and a lot more particulate in it. And the Fluval is kind of in between them. The Fluval color and the Neo color is about the same. But yeah, so far Neo has this beat. And we're just slowly going down. This pen, never confident in this pen unless I leave it in here for a couple minutes for the reading to go. So we're at 5.9 here, 5.8. 5.7. So I'm pretty happy with 5.7. I don't want to go much lower than that. You know, maybe 5.5 would be my maximum that I like to go to. I know some guys like to do it just at 5 or just above 5. I'm going to stick with that. So we'll call it 5.7 on this tank. And now this is the fluval. It's already jumping up. 0.8, 0.9. Six. So I want these tanks were going to be, I think I misspoke in the beginning there, that these are for Caridina shrimp. I have a couple variants I'm going to line breed. I have a boa line that I wanted to use one of these tanks for. And then I have a crystal black line that I got a different variant came out that I want to line breed it, as well as a crystal white. I have a triple S grade, it looks like, that I'm going to try to line breed. But this JBL tank is not going to be for Caridina if it doesn't drop the pH down. So 6.2, we'll call the fluval. So better than the JBL, but not as good as the Neo. All right, I'll give it a little bit more time and come back and do some more testing. Okay, quick update. So we're another 6 days into this comparison. The JBL tank cleared up beautifully. But now the Neo tank and the fluval have gone green. These are not concerns. It's a good thing. It's part of the cycling process. It's just interesting how the different substrates cause different things at different times. So the JBL must have had some more ammonias leach out to produce the green tank quite instantly, and whereas the Neo and the fluval have now gone green a little bit later. A little update, I added a couple things to the tank. I put some terracotta feeder trays in. I put some cholla wood in. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I had it. So I'm using it. Keep an eye on it. This cholla wood will degrade and does fall apart and can make a mess of your tank in time. So at some point I got to pull it out before we get to that. I put a little bit more eelgrass in as well. And I actually seeded each tank with Daphnia a couple days ago. And I see the Daphnia are still swimming around inside the tank. So the tanks are, I'm pretty confident that the tanks are now safe for shrimp. pH has not changed much. So the JBL, which is bizarre, is still 7.5 today. I think it was 7.7 we got 6 days ago. Today it's coming in at 7.5. So it went down nominally. The Neo is stayed consistent. It's down at pH of 5.7. And the fluval is fairly consistent. It's at 6.3. So as it stands right now, for buffering pH, Neo is going to be the clear winner here, followed by the fluval, and JBL. Unless something miraculously happens here, I will not be using JBL for Caridina shrimp. It's just the pH is just too high. It's actually raised the pH from the RO water. So I'm thinking this is fairly conclusive. I'm going to run this a little bit longer. I'll check back in about a week, another week, and we'll see if anything changed. I don't expect too much to change. But yeah, Neo looks to be the one I'm going to stick with for my Caridinas. Okay, everybody, catch you in another week or two. Okay, we're back. So it is December the 9th today. So we're just about 3 weeks since I've checked these tanks. We started this on November 5th, now December 9th. So just about a month since we started, 3 weeks since I last checked in. So the fluval, looking pretty good. A little bit of algae growing on some floating plants and a little bit on my eelgrass. The Neo tank looks very clean. I don't see any algae at all. And the JBL tank, well, it's got a lot of algae going on here. And another thing kind of weird is the JBL tank has hydra on the walls, lots of hydra. So not too sure where these would, well, they would have come in on a plant or something, but I do not know of any other tanks that I have hydra in. And I put the same stuff in each of these tanks, and the other two tanks are hydra free. So unrelated to the soil, but I've got an idea for another video with these hydra in here that I'll tell you what I'm going to do at the end of this one. So I'm going to do all my water checks, and we'll see what the parameters are. So instead of boring you, I'm just going to put this on fast forward, and I'll be back with the results. Okay, the results are in. Kind of interesting. So the fluval stratum, which is supposed to lower pH, make it a little softer water, is in the first tank. Second tank, I have the Neo shrimp. And the last tank is this JBL, also shrimp, to lower the pH. So interestingly enough, Neo and fluval are very similar. They buffered the pH, they kept it below 6. Neo kept it a little bit lower. Neo came in now today at 5.7. Oh no, excuse me, that was last month. Today was 5.6, so it actually went down a point. The fluval is also fairly steady. It was 6.3 last month. This month it's 5.9. So it has brought it down as well. Neo slightly more, but they're very comparative. The TDS in both of these two fluval and Neo tanks have remained relatively the same from the beginning. TDS was 122 we started, and today it was 123. And same with the Neo, it was 122 when we started, today it's 125. So there is a little bit of room for error, but I consider that the same as it was. I'm not comparing the JBL just yet because the JBL is quite a bit different. So I'll just finish talking about these two. I only had the test strips for the GH and KH. It looks like the GH is by the color-coded test strip, and again, there's a lot of room for error there, is 10.5 GH, and I'm getting a 2.5 KH reading as well, which prefer to have no KH on a Caridina tank. Similar to the Neo, the GH is 7.0, and the KH, I got 2.5 in there as well. Now, the JBL tank. I read all the instructions on here to see if I was missing something, and it's definitely shrimp rated. It's supposed to buffer the pH. This tank's pH went up quite a bit. So we started with 6.5 when we set this up with the new JBL substrate. Today, it's 7.9 is the pH. Also, we started at a TDS of 122. Today, it's 331. I honestly don't know what's going on here. No ammonia was detected in any of the tanks. The GH and KH are similar in this tank, but pH is too high for a Caridina tank, and TDS as well is too high. So unless I'm missing something, this substrate is not good for Caridina shrimp or for buffering substrate down. It's obviously releasing something in the water. I don't know what it is. Comment below if you know what's being released, because only testing that I can do won't give me the details of what's in the water. The TDS tells me there's a lot more stuff in the water than there was originally, but what it is, do not know. So I think this is where I'm going to wrap this comparison up. The winner, I'm going to say first place is Neo, and then just slightly behind the Neo will be the Fluval, and the JBL, I'm sorry, I'm not even going to consider for a shrimp tank. Not if it's going to change water parameters that drastically. I need to start using these tanks, so I'm going to probably start using the Fluval and Neo, and I'm going to put some, I'm going to start line breeding some Caridinas in there. This JBL, I do not need a tank with a pH of 7.9 and a TDS of 331, so I'll be dismantling this tank and changing out the substrate, most likely putting some Neo soil in it. Okay, folks, I hope that was helpful. If you think it was, like and subscribe. This is kind of my first crack at a full-length video. I'm going to try to make videos kind of relevant and interesting. I'm not just going to make a video for the sake of making one. I'm ending this one here, but I might do a part 2 just 6 months down the road, just see how the Fluval and Neo substrates are doing. And like I say, I might try to see if I can eradicate the Hydra in here with some Hydra eating snails that I'm also breeding. We'll see how well that works. Okay, folks, till next time.